This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, back at it here. So the Rosh comes to Spain in the year 1303. The Rosh had a very interesting custom. You know, many Rosh Yeshiva, they'll take Shlishi. Rebbes, they usually take Shishi. Sam Sofer writes in Shuva Samach Vav 66, the more Chashav Aliyah is Shishi, that's how you remember it, Shuva 66. The Rosh was makbid every week to take the lowest Aliyah. Now, I never knew which is the lowest Aliyah. What's the lowest Aliyah? I thought Revi was the lowest. The Rosh said Chamishi is the lowest. And the Rosh was makbid always to take Chamishi. Now, why is Chamishi the lowest? Now, it's important to know which is the lowest. If you're a gabbai and a guy comes into the shul that you don't like, you have to know. You need to know these things. But the Rosh would take Chamishi every week. Why? People didn't like Chamishi because they said, you know, the first Aliyah has a shidduch. The number 1 has a shidduch with 9. 2 is mishadach with 8. 3 with 7. 4 with 6. 5's a bachelor. So nobody ever wanted to take Chamishi. So the Rosh said, I'll be mishadach every week with Chamishi. Now the Rosh comes to Spain and Talmidim come to him from all over the world. We have tshuvas that Talmidim came to the Rosh to learn all the way from Russia. Can you imagine in the 14th century students coming all the way from Russia? So now the Rosh comes to Spain and he notices a custom that he really did not appreciate, and that is many people were focused on learning the Rif and not on learning the Gemara. Furthermore, many people were paskening from the Rambam. The Rosh writes in a tshuva, Klal Lamed Alpha tests, that you can't paskin halacha from the Rambam. He says the Rambam is different from all other poskim. Other poskim, they let you know which Gemara they got the psak from. So now you can analyze. Is the Gemara a good source? Is the Gemara a good analogy? But says the Rosh, Hu kasav sifroi kimisnave mipi hagavura b'litam of leiraya. The Rambam just writes halacha. You have no idea where he got it from. Says the Rosh, if you're not familiar with the Gemara, you cannot paskin straight from the Rambam. By the way, this is an issue that reverberates until our time. You know, people who may know Mishnah Brura or Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and say, oh yeah, the Mishnah Brura says, but you have to know what the Makar is. You have to know if the situation at hand is analogous to the source. Now I want to share with you literally one of the most haunting stories you'll ever hear. This story is quoted by the Chida and the Shem Hagadolim. The Chida says the source of the story is a handwritten document that he personally saw from Reb Chaim Vital. This was written, Reb Chaim Vital says, in a letter of the Rosh's son. Now, the Rosh had many boys. The Rosh had 8 sons. The most well-known was the Balatuna, Rabbeinu Yaakov. But it's interesting, Rabbeinu Yaakov was not the Rosh's Mamala Makkah. The tour, by the way, comes to Spain, couldn't get a job. Was an Ani ve'evyoin. Ayin betur. This is very interesting. I heard this from Rav Noach Isaac Goldbaum. If you look in the tour brings that he asked his father whether, you know, the Gemara talks about whether you're allowed to collect money for Shabbos Sudos, or Rabbi Kiva would say, Asay Shabbat Choil ve'al titzarech labriyos. Eat peanut butter and jelly and don't borrow money. So the Torah asked his father Rosh, what about me? Am I poor enough that I would qualify for this? And the Rosh never answered his son. And it's a mystery. Why wouldn't the Rosh answer his son? So Rav Obeam explained, the Rosh did not want to say halacha l'maisa that his son had a din of an ani, because that would create a reality and a metzius that his son would be an ani, and it would be impossible to extricate himself from that. But this is written by the Rosh's Mamala Malkoim, Rabbeinu Yehuda. Rabbeinu Yehuda said, when I'm asked, what was life like back in Germany when I was a little boy before we ran away to Spain? He said, I was too young to remember anything. Because my grandfather, the Rosh's father, who knows, who is the Rosh's father? All you who knew Holy Toledo, anybody know who the Rosh's father is? Rabbeinu Yechiel, Rabbeinu Asher ben Yechiel, Rabbeinu Yechiel, was born in the year 1210. And when he was 16 years old, he had a friend in yeshiva named Reb Shlomo HaKohen. And Rabbeinu Yechiel and Reb Shlomo HaKohen, they sealed a covenant with each other that they would split the reward of their mitzvahs and their masim tovim and their Torah. It was once Leil Yom HaKippurim, and in Ashkenaz they were very makbid that every Jewish adult male should light a ner bari for themselves on Yom Kippur. By the way, you know there's a halacha, many people light a yahrzeit licht on Yom Kippur, but actually the halacha requires that every married man light a ner bari, what we call a gesund licht, for themselves on Yom Kippur. Everybody know that? Besides your yahrzeit licht, besides your licht for Havdalah, ner sheshavas, you light a ner bari. And they were very superstitious about it. If your ner bari went out, you weren't surviving the year. It wasn't happening for you. And that year, Rabbeinu Yechiel, his ner bari went out. He was very scared. And sure enough, he passed away on Chol Hamoed Sukkos. Now, the minhag in Ashkenaz was, before you buried the mace, you lay the aron out at the entrance of the cemetery to be able to straighten out the avarim of the mess, because it would be very uncomfortable and very unseemly if the mess's legs were crossed or his eyes were bent. You need to look good down there in the grave. It's important to look straight and look your best. So they would straighten you out, make sure the smile was good, the head was straight, the knees were straight, the arms were straight. And right before the burial of Rabbeinu Yechiel, Reb Shlomo HaKohen says, Rabbeinu Yechiel, remember the deal we made. We're splitting all of our mitzvahs. And in his repose, Rabbeinu Yechiel broke out laughing, and everybody heard. A little while later, Reb Shlomo HaKohen was sitting and learning in the Beis Medrash, and who walks into the Beis Medrash? None other than Rabbeinu Yechiel. And Reb Shlomo HaKohen says, if I didn't know you better, I might be surprised to see you walking around. And they were learning together. And Reb Shlomo HaKohen said, Nu, was machst du? What's going on? And he says, Gan Eden is mamish very geschmack. It's like Gan Eden. No, it is Gan Eden. It is Gan Eden. So he said, I have a chair over there. I'm doing very good. So Reb Shlomo HaKohen said, you have reshus to leave Gan Eden to come learn with me? He says, Avada, I would come with that reshus. But I don't want to come. It's not that I don't have reshus. I'm allowed to come. I don't want to, because it doesn't look good for the Rishonim that live before me who are not allowed to come. So I don't like to make too many cameo appearances. But yes, I do have reshus. A few months later, 6 months later, this is again after the death of Rabbeinu Yechiel. Rabbeinu Yechiel, his wife is about to hit the sack, and Rabbeinu Yechiel appears to his wife. Not in a dream, alive. He walks into the house. He says, what are you doing? Quick, get out of here. Tomorrow they're going to annihilate every Jew in the city. I've already davened to save the rest of Germany, but my tefillos were not answered for your city. So please, my dear wife, run away immediately, now, on Shabbos. Save your life. Save your mother, save your sisters, save our children. And that is how the wife of Rabbeinu Yechiel was able to save the Rosh. This is reported by Reb Chaim Vital and brought in the Sefer Shem Hagdolim of the miraculous rescue of the mother of the Rosh through the appearance of Rabbeinu Yechiel after his demise, where he appeared behaketz. So when we talk about Toledo, anything could happen in the city of Toledo.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.